Is Ben joining us today?
He's not, sadly, and Hedvig won't be either. I know.
Oh.
But that's going to add to the cozy intimacy, which
We need a theme song. Two white guys from America. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, because you don't have enough of two white guys on a podcast. Da-da-da. White guys have opinions. Yeah.
They're sexy, complexy, they're Generation Xy.
If I hear one more podcast that's just a bunch of white guys, you're like, you know what? I like the sound of my voice. Hey, I like the sound of my voice too. We should do a podcast.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Because Language, a show about linguistics, the science of language. My name is Daniel Midgley, and I am joined by our special guest co-host. He's also the co-host, along with Martha Barnett, of the spectacularly popular podcast and radio show, A Way with Words. It's Grant Barrett.
Hi, Daniel. Nice to talk to you from Anaheim. I'm just like practically across the street from Disneyland.
Oh my gosh. What are you doing talking to me?
I can smell the big mice from here.
Ew.
They're like 6 feet tall, running around in public. It's weird.
Oh, okay. Do they smell? Because...
No. The whole place has like piped in smells. They like pipe in the fake smell of baked cookies.
Wow. Oh, that's fresh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're around the Winnie the Pooh stuff, they pipe it out in the smell of honey.
Oh my gosh. They think of everything. All right. Well, the last time I saw you, we were in Times Square. And...
yeah. What were you doing?
We were having cheesecake at Junior's.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It was awesome. But if you see the Elmos and the Cookie Monsters there, they do smell, and it is not cookies.
The question is, I want to see like the Elmos in Times Square versus the Elmos in Las Vegas. Like, I want to just see like verbal sparring, like a round of the dozens or something, or maybe fist fights. I don't know. I don't want to become the new bum fights guy, but I'm just saying I want to see them. They're like two different breeds of Elmo, like subspecies of Elmo.
I just feel that the East Coast Elmos are going to be scrappy. That's
right, because they got to fight off pigeons and like the naked cowboy, and he's all buff and stuff.
He's terrifying,
right? I wish I had that.
But then I think the Las Vegas Elmos could bring it, but I'm not sure.
All right. So here we are. It's nice to talk to you, Daniel. Thank you for inviting me on the show. I don't know if I can meet up to Ben plus Hedvig, but I'll do my best.
Well, you do have something special on your side, and that is that you are a member of the Third Timers Club.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wait, let's see. I did one of the American Dialect Society Word of the Year talks. I talked about that. What else did I do?
You gave us your favorite thing about language for episode 1.
Oh, yeah, but that was like a 15-second clip, so...
Still counts. And now you're here. So we have this unofficial tradition where if you're on 3 times, you might be invited to be an honorary co-host.
Wow.
So you get a t-shirt.
Is this like when you cross the equator, you have to put on a grass skirt and sing bawdy tunes? Like sea shanties, yeah?
It is exactly like that. Body or bawdy? You have the caught merger. Oh my gosh.
No, I don't usually. Actually, I don't usually have caught. Yeah, Don and Dawn are different names for me.
Okay, that's cool. And I just want to say also that in the early days of Because Language, when we were transitioning from Talk the Talk to Because Language, folks, Grant was especially encouraging with helpful advice, and that was really great to have at that time. So thanks very much.
Yeah, I was like, screw it, do it.
Just change the damn name.
I was like, jump.
So that was good. So it's great to have you on.
They'll catch you.
And they did. It worked. Hedvig Hyrgård is off in Sweden celebrating Midsommar. I don't know what that is, but I did notice a movie with that title. I'm pretty sure it's like an explainer or a documentary, so I'm looking forward to watching that.
I thought it was a horror flick. Doesn't it involve like a Wicker Man of some kind?
What?
No.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well, I'll find out.
Hey, Hedvig. I just want to say hey. That's all.
Hey with a J. And not sure what Ben is doing. You can say hello to Ben with a J as well.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Oh, nice. Nice. You've got the accent. This is a very special patron bonus episode, our second in a row. If you are listening to this when this first drops, I'd like to thank you. Yes, you, for being a patron. You're helping us get out the word for solid linguistics and helping us examine news and research, which is what we love to do. So thank you. But if you're listening to this a good while later than June 2021, then thank you as well for being a great listener. You contribute to the show too. Please consider helping us by telling your friends about us and possibly becoming a Patreon patron. And we are Because Lang Pod there. Okay, now that that's done, Grant?
Yes?
Our listeners have sent us ideas for words of the week, and they have sent so many that we have a backlog. So, of course, I thought of you.
And that's why Ben's not here, because he doesn't like words of the week.
He noped out. He seriously did.
More than one?
He just couldn't do it. Oh. You are, of course, the word guy, or a word guy. You do a lot of work with the American Dialect Society's annual Word of the Year vote.
Yeah, for better or worse, I'm lexically oriented. Yeah, it's what Jeff Pullum derides as the big bag of words people.
Oh, man. But that's great. Words are important. It's pretty much July. Do you have any ideas as to frontrunners for this year? You've got your eye on it, surely.
Oh, God.
Come on.
Frontrunners. Hold on. Let me go to my master list of stuff that I've saved. You know I've got a list, right?
I know you've got a list.
I've got a list.
Whip it out.
Yeah, it's long and in my pocket.
Obviously, we're all just waiting for the next Shugi.
So what I do, I have something called my word tips file. And I used to do a words of the year list for the New York Times every year, but then they stopped wanting it. So I said, all right, fine. But for 10 years I did it. And so I had this habit. So okay, here's one. Normal country.
Oh, shoot.
Do you know normal?
I have never heard that expression.
Yeah, normal country. It's about like you have the crazy things happening to you, terrible stuff happening, just the worst stuff. And you just like tag it or put in the tweet or the message. Yeah, normal country. Meaning, yeah, that's every day.
Oh, man.
That's just how it is.
Okay. Wow. Sardonic observation. Okay.
Yeah. That's one of my front runners right there.
And I've never heard it. You know, I tend to be pretty on top of these things, but no, that one, that got past me. I've been nutmegged by that one. Nutmegged.
Yeah, nutmegged. I know nutmegged.
Okay, just checking.
I've been watching the UEFA Cup and the Copa America, so yeah, I know nutmeg.
Tell us a bit about Away with Words. Tell us what you do.
Away with Words is an American public radio show, which means non-commercial, that broadcasts from coast to coast in the U.S., and you can hear it in little bits of Canada and Mexico as well. Also has a popular podcast, and we answer questions about language. We tend towards the kind of folklore / word origins / expressions that your family uses kind of side of things. So we do stray into regular old linguistics. We do grammar disputes and speaking and writing well and slang and new words and stuff. But what we try to do, we talk about it as language seen through the lenses of family, history, and culture. So what that does is you come to us with something your kid brought home from school, and we try to find out more about it. Or you come to us with something you remember your grandma used to say, and we try to find out more about it. Or you come to us and say, my boss and I had a dispute at work, but he's my boss, so he won, but I still think he's wrong. So what do I do? Do I continue to argue with my boss? So sometimes the show is about manners. That's a manners question more than it's a language question. And so it's fun. And because we have such a large audience, we have an exploding inbox. We get tons of email and instant messages and social media messages and voicemail, and we save all the voicemail that we get. It presents as live. It's what's called call out radio. We do it like Car Talk used to do it. So if you call us, you leave a message with your thought or your idea, and then a producer gets back to you and we try to book you for a future show. In that way, we can make sure that we're properly sampling all across the spectrum of questions, all across the spectrum of geographies, and all across the spectrum of identities. We try to make sure we get people who it's more than just white folks, it's everybody from everywhere, including people who speak English as not as a first language, a second, third, fifth language, what have you. And when you do that, it's funny, the doors open up when you put one or two people, say, who are from India and don't speak English as a first language, or or your primary language on the show, you'll be surprised. You'll get more calls from people who are from India and don't speak English as a first or second language. It's really interesting. So that representation actually encourages others to call. So it's works really well for us.
What I love about that is that it's so personal. I mean, language is personal, obviously, but you found a way to make it tie in to family and current needs and identity. And that just, I'm sure that keeps your show on people's minds.
Yeah. One of the things we found during the pandemic was we started getting a lot of emails from people who noticed that we're a nice intellectual refuge. That is, you can come to us and the regular troubles of the world kind of aren't present. We're not constantly, we don't have COVID on a 3-hour repeating cycle, and we don't have presidential politics on a repeating cycle. And yet you can still come away educated. You still feel like you're testing your brain. You're stretching your intellect. And that's kind of what we offer in general and have always offered, a place where you can still feel like you're learning and growing and acquiring knowledge. And yet you don't have to go through the typical stresses of the news cycle in order to do that.
Yeah. I'd like to try something. I get questions a lot, both on Because Language and also on the two ABC shows that I do, both in Perth and Adelaide. It's kind of, some questions just have a way of popping up again and again. I'd like you to hit me with a question that you've had many more times than once. See if I can handle it.
Man, I have got a whole bunch of these. All right. A lot of people call and say, I moved to a new part of the country, and I'll have you guess where when I say this phrase. And everyone says something like, I'm glad you called before you came because I was able to red up the house before you showed up.
Oh, my gosh.
Red up.
Red up. Where are we? Are we in the... okay, we're in the northern cities. We're like up north and middle. Yeah,
we're in Ohio and Pennsylvania, probably.
Okay, that was a little further east than I thought.
And we're in a Scots-Irish area because it's a word, it's an expression that means to clean up or organize or to make ready a house. You might say, I red up the table. I mean, you get ready for dinner, or you red up a room. It means you straighten it, organize it, decolor it, clutter it. And this tends to be used by people in that part of the country who, in this area, settled by people originally from Scotland.
Wow. So it's ready. It's not, I was thinking like to heat up the place because heat is red and things like that. But I was obviously off base.
It's red with 2 Ds usually. R-E-D-D.
Yeah, red. Wow. Like Red Cross, the band. Yeah.
Red up, yeah.
Okay. I have one, and I'm going to throw these at you. Why do people say off of? This annoys me. This is what people say. It annoys them a lot. What's the deal with off of? Why the of? Why can't you just say off?
It's an idiom. Don't parse it for logic, or it'll just break down in front of you.
You do not question the idiom.
Don't take the toy apart, or it'll stop working.
Okay.
It's been around for hundreds of years, about 400 years. It's mostly verbal. We mostly say it and not write it. People say, oh, it's repetitive. We don't need the of, but most spoken language is redundant and repetitive. We just don't notice, but there are a few of these pet phrases that we catch on to. And once one person complains about it, then the complaint gets passed around like the common cold. And that off of is one of those complaints that is contagious. Whereas if you really listened to the way people talk, it is astonishingly repetitive. It is amazingly redundant. There's constant restatement and constant rephrasing. That's just the way we are when we speak.
It's true. People just hand complaints around like, I don't know, the papyrus font or moist. And it's not that they're terrible things. It's just like, oh, I notice now. It's like telling somebody about bad kerning, and then they see bad kerning everywhere they go. And, it makes you feel special.
Things that come with emotional energy, whether it's negative or positive, tend to be emotionally contagious. And so disliking Nickelback is one of those. Or sometimes appreciating an artist, you're like, oh, yeah, she's amazing. And then if you press somebody, they don't know that movie star very well. They maybe haven't even seen more than one of their films, but they just have read or heard a lot of other people say that this particular actor is really amazing. And maybe they are, but their opinion is still only informed through the emotion of other people and not through their own experience. And that's fair, because we're humans and this is how we operate. We just have to recognize what we're doing when we do it.
Do you know what everyone hates this week?
What?
Ketchup. Everybody hates ketchup this week. They're like, oh, it's a child's condiment. Or I heard someone say barbecue sauce is like ketchup, but good. And so, you just sort of watch these complaints get handed around about ketchup. And I'm like, well, I guess we hate ketchup now.
Yeah, it's true. The ketchup one is really interesting because, well, disliking something in the public sphere, such as social media or talk radio or the kind of commentary TV, is a real good way to develop a following. People like to hear passion, and the passion that comes with negativity is really easy to generate. And we might not realize why all these chemicals are firing off in our brains and why we're getting a kick out of this stuff. And sometimes it's the negativity. This is not something I invented or discovered. I'm just explaining what other people have reported. There's a real reason that we're attracted to a whole host of people having a real strong argument against ketchup. It's because it makes us feel the emotion.
And then we come along, the language folks, and we say, hey, everybody, language variation is normal. Everybody speaks with a range of styles. The thing that you're getting worked up about is actually not worth getting worked up about, and you already do a lot of these things in other ways. And that's a hard sell.
We sound like mealy-mouthed spoilers. We're like,
hey, you guys, don't hate.
Don't do that. You can like each other. Be friends.
Give me my hat back. Yeah. So I guess I would just say, if you can say I jumped on the train or I jumped onto the train, then you can say I jumped off the train or I jumped off of the train. It's really not a big deal. And redundancy is built into language. So that's a good answer. Yeah. I like your answer. Mm-hmm. All right. Last question about your show. Would you say that A Way with Words is kind of non-political?
Yeah, but why are you asking?
Because our show is like really political. Like there's a spectrum, right? It's like on the one side, it goes from not so political to very political. It's like Way with Words, Lingthusiasm, us, Vocal Fries.
I think Vocal Fries is all the way out there in the most political spectrum, and God bless them too.
You also got unstandardized English, which is like, possibly even farther, which is great. And I love it for all that.
Yeah.
Do you find it confining?
Do I find it confining?
Yeah, there are certain things you just don't do.
No, and I'll tell you why we operate this way. It really was not by design, but it's been a nice spot for us. When I first started making dictionaries with Oxford University Press, this is back in the early 2000s, my first dictionary was a book of political slang. And it wasn't a very good book, so don't go looking it up. But I did enjoy it and got involved in, I got more interested in politics and started paying more attention to the language. But, I also started finding my work there and from my old dictionary website, Double Tongue Dictionary, being used in ways that I didn't like by people that I didn't agree with. So, for example, I had an entry for Anchor Baby on my old Double Tongued website, and I thought my definition was pretty balanced, But before you know it, fans of Rush Limbaugh's radio show, and he's a conservative, or was, he's dead now, God bless. The fans of Rush, I don't mean that. Sorry, he died. Nobody should die. But if anybody deserved it more, it's Rush Limbaugh.
Clarence Darrow once said, I have never killed anyone, but I have read some obituary notices with great satisfaction.
Yes. So he was a conservative American radio show host. And he and his people, or at least his people, were quoting my definition. And they would sometimes mention me and my credentials to give the definition authority. Yep. And they seemed to be using it to prove that women from other countries were lining up at the border right before their due date so that they could go into labor as soon as they were on the other side. And, immigrate, as if immigration is a bad thing. And it really left a bad taste in my mouth. And it wasn't the only time. I mean, it happens all the time. Every dictionary maker goes through this. Wow. And, and there's another part of this. Public radio carries our show, and many of the stations would not carry us if we had the slightest political whiff whatsoever. We are not a politics show. We're an entertainment show. When we go on tend to be aired in slots where people are not expecting politics. And, public radio and the pod universe are just awash in political content. I mean, I think public radio overdoes it to the point where I've gone whole years without turning on the radio just to avoid another political story that I'm already getting from social media, my email, and the internet at large, I mean, I'm not avoiding politics. I just don't want to have it beaten in my head by the cycle, the news cycle. So public radio too often forgets about the entertainment part, and that's what we're doing here. And so, as I mentioned earlier, my radio partners and I kind of all realized that we'd come into the same direction, particularly when we started getting those emails and phone calls from our listeners saying, look, you've been a place that's a refuge for me. Sure, we might discuss things like, the origin of a word like Senate, which actually comes from a word meaning old men, or the pronunciation of gerrymander. The guy's name was originally pronounced Gary.
Oh, really?
But we weren't going to be talking about new partisan insults, the slang insults from the left and the right that just appeared. And we weren't going to help mock a politician's pronunciation or verbal gaffes. And we weren't going to assist anyone in using a question on our show as a proxy for painting any part of the political spectrum a certain color. And that's kind of what you get. You get these questions that really aren't questions. They're just somebody trying to make a political dig. And they're really easy to suss out. And, sometimes the question you think, oh, well, I'm clever enough that I can guide this listener to a space where their intent won't matter and we can get something good out of this. But really, it's never worth the effort. So anyway, it's been a great decision. We get zillions of different messages and contacts from people saying they see us as a educated, intelligent, respectful refuge away from the kind of discord and disgruntlement that has been such a part of the election cycle since basically 9/11.
It seems really hard to talk about language and not talk about politics because a lot of things are political that didn't used to be. Like, if we mention pronouns, or you talk about naming of products, which takes you to giving products and sports teams racist names, it's really hard for us not to address that through our political lens. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And you'll see a little note in our mission statement where we talk about defusing the places where people's complaints about language and their peeves about language are almost always a proxy for something else. People, you've mentioned this. I know we've talked about this face to face too. And most of our colleagues understand this, but the world at large outside of the language biz doesn't. When you complain about language, typically it's about you and not about the person you're complaining about or about the mistake that you're complaining about. I mean, okay, sometimes our complaints are good natured and we don't really mean it. But typically, they're a dodge for, they're a proxy for racism, elitism, classism, sexism, genderism, ageism. I mean, and many more of those sorts of isms and those sorts of terms. And so on our show, when those do come up, for example, when we talk about the new pronouns, when we do talk about them, we talk about them in an apolitical context and we normalize them. We make it clear that this is an ongoing trend. You've simply noticed it late. And isn't this interesting? And isn't this amazing? And how great it is that we can accommodate our fellow humans in the ways that they want to be accommodated. And so in that way, we're doing politics by giving you an answer that you didn't know you needed when you feel uncomfortable about these changes to language that may have a political focus.
Yeah.
We're helping you so the next time you're awkward having to use they as a pronoun, you might remember our show and go, oh yeah, Martha and Grant said all I have to do is.
And what is considered political has changed. I mean,
that's true.
A lot of things didn't used to be political and then politics moved. So it seems like you can't avoid it, but you're doing it in a really good way, in a really positive way.
It's hard. It can be hard. Sometimes we fail, and the email box will show it. The email box will show, I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you did that. Or, the funny thing is we'll do a segment sometimes, and it happens everywhere, but you'll get batches of emails from all ends of the political spectrum claiming that we were biased against them, left and right and in the middle. And how is one segment all of those things? But basically what they're saying is we didn't handle it with the delicacy that they're used to, and that we should do better next time. Not that they're correct about the bias being there, but really what they're saying is we weren't clear. And so we have to take that lesson away and do better next time.
We felt uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, basically that's what they're saying. So their conclusion is incorrect, but the emotions are probably correct.
You've got a big heart, Grant.
I try. It's hard won.
Yeah. Hey, you ready to get some words?
Oh, more? Yes.
Let's do it. Okay, this one comes from Jenna on Facebook. It's Juneteenth. We're reaching back a little ways. Jenna says, Juneteenth was recently made a national holiday in the USA. Do we know the linguistic origin of the word Juneteenth? It sounds like it means an indeterminate day between the 13th and the 19th of June. Let's start with my partner. My partner had never heard about Juneteenth until this year because she's Australian. Mm-hmm. Whereas I, as a white American kid, had never heard about Juneteenth either. Well, no, that's not quite true. But it never came up in my protracted education. I just never heard it in high school. Was that your experience, or were you more on the ball than I was?
Oh, no, that's true for me. I'd never heard it until I became a lexicographer and a word guy, and it passed by before my eyes among my travels. That's the only one I found it.
Yep. I knew it was the 19th. I did know that. Which is funny because my partner asked, well, what date is it? And I said, I thought, isn't it obvious? It's the 19th. But then I realized, oh, no, there are like 6 other things it could be. Juneteenth. Do we know much about the origin?
We do know some. It might surprise people to know that it was a holiday in Texas before it was a holiday anywhere else, because that's where it started. It celebrates the emancipation of slaves. In 1865, there was a General Gordon Granger who landed at Galveston, which is a port city. And he landed there with a regiment of Union soldiers and read General Order Number 3, which included sentences along the lines of all slaves are free. And so that became a celebration among people in East Texas to start. And then it spread throughout the state. And it spread to Louisiana and Arkansas. And then by 1979, it became an official holiday in Texas itself, and then continued to spread from there.
And when they read that announcement, I always think of the people saying back, "What? Since when?" 2 years ago. Took us a while to get here.
Yeah. It's funny how recent that actually is. 1865 is actually, in the history of humanity, 1865 is yesterday.
That's like 2 or 3 human lifetimes.
Yeah, it's not that long ago.
Do we know how it got blended as a portmanteau? Because I know Ben Zimmer did an excellent article in the Wall Street Journal about how it was June the 10th for a while. It was June-10th, and then it became Juneteenth. Do we know much about this? I was unable to get too much more about that.
No, I don't know any more about it than you've uncovered, or Ben, whose research is always exquisite, was able to uncover. What I do know is that it is interesting in how early a blend it is. Blends at the time were not that common. And so blends before 1900 tended to be mostly company names and not anything else.
Okay. Yeah. We'll have a link to Ben's article on our blog, becauselanguage.com. I just want to say Juneteenth is my favorite portmanteau holiday.
Yeah.
Yep.
By the way, there's another black holiday which might come around the pike soon to keep your eyes on. It's Pinkster, Pinkster, that African Americans in New York picked up from the Dutch there. So I don't know if there are legs behind its movement, but it's still celebrated in some places in New York State, and perhaps we'll see that be a holiday as well.
Then that was intended to commemorate anything in particular?
It's just being themselves. So the African Americans kind of basically borrowed it from the Dutch, and it became an African American holiday, something that they didn't have. They had no holidays for themselves.
Wow.
Until they took it from the Dutch. The Dutch stopped celebrating it.
I am just eaten alive with curiosity about the name Pinkster.
Isn't it lovely? Yeah.
Google.
Google is your friend.
Okay, I can do that. Okay, another one. And this one I noticed in a tweet from Marie Beecham on Twitter, which I retweeted. Marie says, I started saying enslaved people instead of slaves. And you should consider making this change too. Slave is an identity. It says this is who they are. Enslaved is a circumstance. It says this is what was done to them. The language we use matters. And I have noticed a lot of people writing enslaved people instead of slaves because slaves sounds gross and enslaved people seems like a more natural choice.
Agreed.
So I commend that to our listeners.
Yeah, Martha and I talked about this on the show in 2015, and one of the other phrases that way it was put was you could also talk about them historically as enslaved Africans or just captives, if you're depending what part of the process you're talking about, just to make it clear that this wasn't willing. If you look at some of the heavily modified textbooks and the way that slavery is discussed, particularly in the American South, it makes it sound like they were just mistreated plantation workers rather than people who were stolen from Africa, whipped, beaten, deprived, families intentionally broken, and so forth and so on. And it was,
That's it. Okay, let's go on. This one was suggested by Wolf of the Wisp. Lab leak. This one's been in the news a lot.
Yeah, lab leak.
The idea that SARS-CoV-2 was somehow engineered in a lab in China and then either wittingly or unwittingly leaked to the world. How did this gain traction in the mainstream? It's just weird to me because it's been in the news because President Joe Biden of the USA has said we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to have an investigation. And I think this has implications for how we talk about things. That Dr. Anthony Fauci of the NIH has said in an episode of Sway with Kara Swisher, a New York Times joint, that there isn't anything more to this than there ever was, and yet this is being investigated. And yet, in our current environment, simply investigating something is taken as evidence for the thing you're investigating in the eyes of conspiracy theorists.
I agree. You can't investigate enough for conspiracy theorists to be satisfied. You can never have enough investigations. You can never have enough committees. You can never have enough eyes on it. They'll never trust you to have done sufficient a job. So if he's just trying to appease those people, it's going to fail. Unless he gives them the answer that they want.
Because confirmation bias is how you stay in a cultish situation, which is a callback to our episode with Amanda Montell. Okay, good for that one. Let's go on to Margaret on Twitter. Reboarding. This is one that I had not heard before. Is reboarding another example of new words inspired by COVID, or was it already in use, for example, returning to work after maybe parental leave? And does it specifically imply returning to the office or returning to the workplace in general? Reboarding. Have you encountered this one, Grant?
I have, but I'm more interested in thinking about board and boarding as combining form because it's really been very productive. We're looking at offboarding, reboarding, inboarding, onboarding, and all those different terms, all referring to what you do with employees. Do you bring them inside the company, outside the company? Do you fire them and hire them back as contractors? There's a variety of different terms for each of those situations and some more, all involving forms of boarding.
And is the board a ship, like welcome aboard?
Yeah, it's all, I think, derives from the HR term onboarding. This is the induction process that you do when you bring somebody onto staff.
Yep. I was looking in all the corpus tools that I could find for reboarding. If you look prior to 2020, it's pretty much all about boats and buses, the reboarding the ship, reboarding the yacht. Even the Google Ngram corpus, which goes to 2019 now, comes up empty for employee reboarding or reboarding employees. Google Trends just blinked at me and said there isn't enough data, which I thought was interesting.
I heard it in an interview, and I wish I'd have noted where, but it was somebody talking about exactly the circumstance that you said, bringing employees back into the office after they've been working from home for so long.
So Margaret asks, does it imply returning to the office or returning to the workplace in general? I'm not sure how to take that because they sound like kind of the same thing to me. Do you have to go to the same office again, or can you just be re-entering the workforce? I think probably the former in my reading.
That's how I heard it in the one time I heard it. But
so
who can
going
say?
back to the same office.
It's early days for the term. It obviously, hasn't settled yet. So something new could happen to it.
Okay, well, here's another one with a slightly longer history, and that's staycation.
Oh, yeah.
Fiona Jordan on Twitter. I was unaware of this difference, by the way. She tweets, I am chill about language change, but to all you plonkers, love that word, plonkers, who appropriated staycation to mean holiday that doesn't involve my passport, the onus is on you for holiday where I sleep in my own bed each night but do fun stuff instead of work. Come on, what's the word? Now, what is your familiarity with this term? In your experience, does a staycation have to be at home, or can it just be in your same town or county or state?
All right. When you sent me the list of things we want to talk about today, I did look this one up, and we just have to acknowledge that we both know that it's as early as 1944 in the Oxford English Dictionary, right?
Yep.
But in my files, I have a press release that I saved from 2009 that a company called Spinvox put out, and they defined it as, quote, a holiday in the country in which you lived.
In the country in which you live.
Yeah. So it's basically, that's the definition she's complaining about. So we're looking at this definition basically being around for 12 years.
Yeah, okay. I found also a 2009 quote from a show called Army Wives. This, my darlings, is what the trendsetters refer to as a staycation. A staycation? Precisely. All the pleasures of a trip in the confines of one's own home.
Oh.
But from 2010, in the Christian Science Monitor, staycation, they define it as taking a vacation from work, but staying close to home to save money. So it seems like there's always been this flip-floppy variation in staycation.
Yeah, I think people have in their mind the perfect vacation where you completely shut down the house and rehome the pets and turn off the utilities, and you're gone for 3 weeks, and involves passports and airplanes and tropical isles, and you come back refreshed and tanned. And but who takes vacations like that anymore? At least nobody in my life.
I don't know. On Because Language, we have the power and the authority to declare language to be a certain way by fiat. So, now's our chance. What is the word for when you take a staycation but you do stay at home? We can let them have staycation for like staying in the same city or the same state or no passport, but...
So let them have staycation because they've already ruined it.
Because that's what happens with words when they change.
Damn them!
They are ruined. They are ruined.
Apes.
You blew it up! How about homecation? I don't like it.
I really dislike... I'm one of those people who really dislikes I really dislike blends.
Oh, really?
Because they're usually terrible. They're about as bad as, they're just kind of predictable and not that clever. And I want good blends should pass by you on first hearing without you realizing they're a blend.
Yep.
And they almost never do.
And then I have a hard time finding them for word of the week because they're just so natural.
Yeah. Well, by the way, here's another one that came up. Daycation. It's a one-day vacation.
A daycation.
Yeah.
See, that preserves the they syllable.
Yeah, it sure does. Mm-hmm. And then the other one that came up during the pandemic was coronation, but that has like 3 different definitions. One you had to take where, you're at home all the time because of the pandemic. 2, you did a really cheap vacation because Corona ruined all your plans and airlines are shut down and car rentals are hard to get. And then another one, coronation, is working from home. Yeah,
okay. Coronation also sounds a bit like a coronation, which is where you declare yourself a king of the house and you refuse to leave.
Pile up the couch cushions, sit on top.
I am the lord of all I survey.
Bring me ice cream. I demand ice cream.
Okay. This one was suggested by Drew, my darling adult son, who is a great guy. He said, Dad, I've got this word that I think you might want to know about. It's mutuals. Mutuals. People who you follow online and who also follow you, but you also kind of know them in real life, or you have a closer relationship than just the typical fan important person dynamic. Have you heard this one?
Yeah, that's really common in social media.
Okay, cool. Well, you're cooler than I am. Have you ever seen?
True.
I saw this phrase, mutuals keep scrolling, which means if we follow each other and we know each other, you might want to just not read this because I'm only releasing this information to people who I don't know because it's too personal, which seemed like a weird inversion to me.
Yeah, that is a weird inversion. Like, why don't you want your mutuals to know?
Maybe it's like a shameful secret that you can only confess to someone anonymous.
But don't post it to the internet then, ding dong.
You don't know how this works, Grant. You have to.
I know. You got to feed the giant maw of social media. It must be fed, or it comes after you.
Arbitrary approval clicks must be garnered.
Yeah.
Let's see. So thank you, Drew, for that one. I've been noticing a couple of words that relate to the impact that something has on someone, and they are land and hit. So I'll just read some examples here. How is this idea going to land with voters, and how is it going to impact them? Our latest episode lands on Tuesday. Episodes don't drop anymore. They land. I've seen a lot of people write, this thing has an impact on me. It just hits different. And then this one, any podcast recommendations for whilst I work on art? I have a few I listen to, but they don't hit as much as they did before. So I'm just noticing these words landing and hitting as they pertain to the way that something affects us or the way that it bumps against us when we encounter it.
Those are good examples of continuance, I think. Really good examples of old language being, thoroughly woven into everyday language. And I wanted to talk about hits different. That sounds slangy. It has a slang mouthfeel, I think, because of different being used as an adverb rather than an adjective. So it kind of jumps out at you, right? That slang.
Flat adverbs. Love those.
Yeah. Hits different. But both land and hit have figurative uses dating back hundreds of years that are very much the same as the ones that you're talking about. And that's not to take anything away. What I'm talking about is this further continuance of these words further away from their literal sources down the figurative path. So we might get in a couple hundred more years to being so different that they're not even recognized as being the same words anymore. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I love it when words generate new senses. Like that's, you talk about portmanteaus. Portmanteaus are fun, but they don't stick around very long. But when a word subtly shifts senses and gathers a new sense, it's very likely to stick around, I think. And it sometimes just fails to register. It doesn't hit. You just don't notice it. You just use it so naturally.
Yeah, there's a weird paradox that the people who want language to stay the same because they feel overwhelmed by change, at the same time really find it frustrating that the words that die are the ones that don't undergo these transitions. In order for a word to be lively and alive, it has to be constantly used. And when it's constantly used, it's changed. So unused words die. That's just how it goes. And if it is used, it changes.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. We're really speaking to the inevitability of language change and the futility of trying to stop it in its tracks.
Well, just know that humans don't live long enough for it to really matter to an individual.
Yeah, true.
That's a real sad thought. Let's end on that happy note.
Well, we got one more.
I'm
kidding. It was Andy Hollenbeck. I don't know if you're acquainted with Andy.
Andy was on our radio show recently. Yeah.
I thought he was, yes.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't mind us every once in a while. So he sent an email, hello@becauselanguage.com. He says, I don't know how old the phrase errand hang is, but I just saw it for the first, second, and third time in the last week. All right. So, I think we've all had that experience with some word or other. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's breaking, but we do become aware of these things. So I'm going to read a bit from the Substack of Annika Hanstein-Izora. Can we take a moment to talk about the sweetness of the errand friend hang? The errand hang, where you hit your homie up to accompany you while you tend to the tasks that come with adulting. That's another great word. The grocery run, getting a pair of pants tailored, helping you pick a new bed frame, and so on. The errand hang dismisses the usual setting of a bar or a lunch. It waves off the expected script of, give me the summarized updates on your life, and then I'll give you the sum on mine. Instead, the errand hang dances in the sweet vulnerability that comes from the everyday. The errand hang sings, okay, I'm a human and you're a human, and we're going to take an intimate walk through this seemingly ordinary part of my life. But if you look closely, this moment will reveal something delightfully specific and illuminating to what makes me, me. And I want to share that with you because, quite frankly, I just like your company. And even in the silence, sometimes especially in the silence, it makes me feel somewhere between warm and content to have you here beside me.
The sweet vulnerability of everyday life. What a gorgeous piece of writing. That's so lovely.
Isn't it just? Yeah.
What's her name again? Let's give her full credit again.
That was Annika Hanstein Izora. We'll have a link to that up on our blog. You know, it is vulnerable, isn't it? It's like I'm picking out sheets. Mm-hmm. And when I use those sheets with the little flowers, first of all, you know something about me because of the design I chose. Mm-hmm. But also, I'm going to think about that time when we had a hang and we got that stuff. I really like this idea a lot.
What I flashed to was running errands with my father and my brother when I was a kid. My dad would just get us out from under my mom's feet, and he'd always use the back of envelopes, scrap envelopes, for his notes in his particular handwriting, and we'd go to the post office, and we'd go to the bank, and we'd go to the feed store, and maybe we'd go to the hardware store, and it was just the three of us hanging out, running, errands. And it was that. It was, and also whether he knew it or not, he was teaching my brother and I how to be adults. This is how a bank works. This is how a post office works. This is how men behave in the hardware store. It was good. It was three dudes out there just hanging out, and he wasn't expecting anything from us except to be with him. And it was really nice.
I used to do errand hangs a lot more than I do now. Like when I was in high school or even early uni, we used to just go and get things that we needed and look for stuff that we wanted. And I miss it, I miss it.
Yeah.
Andy continues, according to a tweet from Cindy Wang Brandt, we'll have that up on the blog too, it seems the errand hang is considered un-American because, I don't know, rugged individualism or self-sufficiency, or it's somehow socialist. But it's the perfect phrase for something I know could be good for many of us, not only for our relationships, but for our mental health, or at least for mine. All right, so I like that. Thank you, Andy, for bringing that to my attention. I'm going to use it more, and I think I might do it some more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, Grant, those are all the words. You've taken me through. You've enlightened my understanding.
Wow, all the words. There's no more left. We've shut down the dictionary companies.
But there are some comments, so here we go. First of all, Grant, what is the spicy sauce beginning with a W and ending in shire?
Worcestershire sauce.
Worcestershire.
Yeah,
okay.
You don't pronounce it like Massachusetts, the city in Massachusetts.
How?
The place name in England is a little different. Worcester. I'm sorry, Worcester, no R. No first
Worcester
R.
in Massachusetts?
Yeah, Worcester, Massachusetts, right?
Okay, so here's the thing. So we started an episode. It was our cold open, I think, for episode 29 or 30. And I said to Ben and Hedvig I was talking about Worcestershire sauce, and that's how I said it. But then Hedvig kind of corrected me, and she was just funning a little bit, I thought. Mm-hmm. And I said Worcester sauce because no,
sorry. I'm laughing at your misfortune. That guy hurt himself.
No, but I like calling it Worcester sauce, and I didn't even know about Worcester, Massachusetts, because it sounded like the most reduced name for the sauce that it could be, and I just thought that reducing it was funny. But there are actually Worcestershires here and there. So
you could just reduce it further and call it woo sauce.
Woo sauce. We can make it a portmanteau and call it was. Yeah. The was.
I'll just call it wa.
I don't like that anymore. No, I
don't. No, me neither. Wa sounds gross.
No.
I would not put it. That sounds like something that needs a Band-Aid.
Too much lenition. We got to bulk it up. So Stephen, via email, says, you were not wrong in your pronunciation of Worcestershire. Hedvig was not wrong to correct you if you were pronouncing Worcester, but the sauce is named after the county, not the city, so it's Worcestershire. But if you should ever visit Worcester, Mass. or Worcester, UK, it would be exactly as Hedvig recommends you pronounce it. But I should say we were just being silly, so
yeah,
it was a cold open.
Yeah, sometimes people, it's hard to pick up on that, but that's fun. I love the cold opens, by the way. That's a great way to start the show.
We try to find something fun. This one's from Cameron. Finally, hello at becauselanguage.com. Hello, friends. My wife, an epidemiologist, pointed out to me recently that the emoji for the syringe has recently changed from a scary blood-dripping one to a friendlier, cleaner design. I found this blog post about it, link on our blog, Emojipedia, great source. As we've started speaking about shots differently, like the rise of the word jab here in the US, and come to associate syringes more with vaccines than blood donations, it makes sense that the visual representations would change too. Keep talking. Thanks, Cameron. That's a little talk the talk throwback. I don't associate syringes with blood donations, do you?
No, I don't. No, I just associate.
Just goes into a bag.
Yeah, tubes and bags and things. But when you do blood draws with, syringes, you don't really use at any point.
What are they doing? Do they take some and then squirt it into a bucket? Is that how it's supposed to work?
Even when you go to a lab to get blood drawn for test, they tap the vein, but with a needle, not a syringe, and then they just reattach it to several vials.
Which is why the blood-filled syringe never made any sense to me. Because if somebody came at me with a blood-filled syringe, I would assume I was being robbed and I would get out of there.
Yeah, and they were trying to infect you with the disease, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the current one is much better. If we can give it like wings and a halo in the next iteration, maybe that would do some good as well.
Agreed.
Grant Barrett of A Way with Words, thank you for hanging with me today. How can people find your show?
Go to waywordradio.org. Any way you want to spell wayword will get you there. You can also find us on Twitter at WAYWORD. And you can send us email to words@waywordradio.org. Daniel, it's been a great pleasure. I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to Ben and Hedvig, but maybe another time.
Well, now that you're an honorary co-host, you can bust on in anytime you want to.
Nice.
I have to do the thing where we say, welcome to this episode. Grant is out today, but we hope to have him back later. Hope he's doing fine.
Do you do that for all your your guest hosts? So now you're up to 15 where you're like, all right, so Helen Saltman's not here and Grant Barrett's not here and
Nicole Holliday's not. So, there are only a few people in the Three Timers Club, I've got to say.
Wow. Bonus. Nice.
Yep. You're elect. If you have a comment or a question or you just want to say hi, please get in touch with us. We are Because Lang Pod on every conceivable social media platform, including, in no particular order, Patreon, Substack, Clubhouse, Mastodon, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and even Facebook. Now, if you would like to help the show, you can do a certain number of things. You can tell friends about us. You know who's someone who's really good at doing that, not only Grant for Because Language, but also for A Way with Words, is Dustin of the Sandman Stories podcast.
Absolutely. He recommends anytime that somebody's on the internet asking for a new podcast to listen to, so especially if they're asking for podcasts that are easy to listen to, he recommends our shows, and it's lovely and wonderful, and he brings a great audience to us. Like, he brings good and kind people to our shows.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, where are the meanies? I need more meanies in my life. No, I don't. No, stay away.
Oh, no. As they said on bumper stickers in the 90s, mean people suck. So that's one thing you can do. You can also leave us a review in all the places that reviews can be left. If you do those things, it'll help people to find us. Now, we have a lot of patrons, including you, so we're really grateful to you for supporting the show. Because you help us in this work, we can make episodes, release them for free. We don't have to worry about algorithms or advertisers or anything like that. Also, we can make transcripts thanks to the work of Maya Klein of Voicing Words. And that means that people who don't like to listen or who can't listen can still enjoy our show. Hey, inclusivity, it's what it's all about. So, big shout out to our top patrons: Dustin, Termy, Chris B, Chris L, Matt, Whitney, Damien, Joanna, Helen, Bob, Jack, Kitty, Lord Mortis, Elias, Erica, Michael, Larry, Bin, Christopher, Andy, Mai, James, Nigel, Kate, Jen, Nasrin, River, Nikolai, Aisha, Moe, Steele, Andrew, Manu, James, Shane, Roger, Rianne, Jonathan, Colleen, Glyph, Ignacio, Kevin, and most recently, Jeff and 9001. Big thanks to all of our patrons for your support.
Nice going, Jeff. I'm a little disappointed not to hear that. Lord Mortis.
Okay, I'll try.
Lord Mortis.
Our theme music, which is not in that style, has been written and performed by Drew Kaplyanov, who's a member of Ryan Bino and of Didion's Bible. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next time. Because language.
So long. Thanks, everyone. Yes, yeah. Hedwig's a real delight. I think I've said this before in person, that Hedwig is a real treat, and she tempers Ben's exuberance.
Exuberance. That's one I haven't.
Well, I don't know about exuberance, but he's on the chart of evil and everything. He's somewhere on the right hand column of the lawful evil. I think
he is. I've been trying to think. I mean, is there a better axis, like Winnie the Pooh personalities, or like Harry Potter? No, we've already done that one.
Yeah, I don't know. Bond villains, maybe.
Oh, Ben would be a good Bond villain.
Bond has got his own issues. I mean, we're kind of all past that Bond. But there's no new. The media landscape is so fractured right now. That's old news, but it's hard to come up with something that's universal where we can all, pick ourselves, choose ourselves.
I'm just confused though. Is the personality test that you have to choose which villain you are?
I think yeah. Or is it BuzzFeed style where you take them? Which cat do you like best, and you have to pick the furless one?
Yeah. Okay. I don't have any trust in those ever since there was one. Which 90s rock chick are you? And Shirley Manson took the quiz and did not come up as Shirley Manson.
Who'd she get?
So. Who did she get? I've got to look it
wonderful.
up. I can't think of any other 90s rock. Kim Deal. Kim Deal. That's who it is.
Kim's good. It could be worse. Could be Liz Phair.
God, oh my gosh, this is taking me back. Does Fiona Apple count because she's still good?
Yeah,
I think she's
Well,
timeless.
I think Liz Phair is still good. Okay. I would want to be Exene Cervenka. I think that's who I would want to be. So
no shade on Liz Phair. I'll be frank.
I never. She never did it for me. Sorry, Liz. I know you have your fans. Yeah, and she's trying to come back, and good for her. She's talented. It's just not the kind of talent I appreciate. So.
Oh, well, when I said I'll be frank, that I meant PHRANC.
I see. Yeah. Nice. Yeah,
I was frank.
I saw her perform a couple of times. She was very good, actually. She could really rile a crowd up. She had delightfully sarcastic politics that I really appreciated. Her in between song patter was just delicious.
Peerless. She opened for Morrissey in Salt Lake once.
Oh, I bet that went over well.
It was people dug Frank. It was fine. See, I had myself fooled into thinking that Morrissey was maybe kind of a lefty sort of guy because he was vegetarian. I don't know.
He got you
he
good,
did.
like the rest of us. But also he got old. I think he surprised himself and just went with himself. Because at some point when you get older, you're like, hey, being right wing is alternative, and you realize that it isn't. You're your dad. You're your grandpa.
Yeah, your grandpa. Yeah, leapfrogged a generation. Yeah, that was a big disappointment. All right, I think we've got this. I think we've got enough for the outtake reel.
We're warmed up. You're gonna have the largest outtake reel you've ever had.
No, oh shoot, no, I could go for. Oh man,
I know. All right, here we go.